Protests erupted overnight in the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, after the anchor of an opposition TV channel there voiced a stream of insults against the Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's caused real stir in our studio now, Ilya Petrenko, across this one today. Well, obviously, Russia was high there. Russia quick to react, obviously, but this spat's been going on for a bit, and it's in light of some plane suspensions coming today. Tell us all.
Well, first of all, that video, for obvious reasons, we're not going to show it on air, but it was all over the internet, both in Georgia, here in Russia. Actually, my friend sent it to me last night, and I was just having tea, and I played it. The volume was up, and the language there was so offensive that people started looking at me, asking me, what are you watching? So it was a Georgian TV anchor. It was a primetime show, a weekly TV show, where he used some of the most offensive words that there are in the Russian language against Vladimir Putin, specifically against his parents as well. And this is what he pointed out, even though they're no longer alive. So definitely it was an anti-Russian, anti-Putin rant that was bound to get some aggressive reaction, both in Georgia and in Russia, because
so it came to pass.
People don't really want this to escalate, and this is perhaps what angered the protesters. And soon after, in fact, it happened this morning, we also got reaction from the Russian diplomats to it. So let's have a look at what that reaction was.
We strongly condemn the unprecedented nefarious behavior involving an unacceptable attack in obscene language against the Russian leadership, hosted by the Georgian TV channel Rustavi 2. We see this as another clear provocation by radical forces in Georgia, aimed at undermining Russia-Georgia relations. The current blatant incident is a vivid example of where frantic Russophobia can lead.
Now, given the fact that Russia and Georgia are currently in the midst of a real crisis in their relations, which I'm going to tell you about a bit later, you'd expect Georgian officials not to really somehow stay away from this. And sure, they didn't. We heard condemnation from the Georgian president, who called it hate speech, saying that these kind of insults have nothing to do with patriotism. The Prime Minister of Georgia called these insults a provocation, and we also heard condemnation from the Georgian Foreign Ministry. So it seems that, at least on this particular matter, they are on the same page. Once again, this rant was in Russian. We understand that... And
this is a time, notwithstanding anyway, whatever you think about the politics of it or the personal side of it, kids could have been watching this.
You know what? Two cameramen, they resigned right after it happened because they said they don't want to be a part of this. Again, this channel is very popular in Georgia. It went off air for a few hours. Now it's back on air. Right. And again, we have to understand what the context of this is. And this is a deep political crisis between Russia and Georgia. Just to remind you, it's Russia's neighbor to the south. It's a post-Soviet republic. And about 3 weeks ago, there was an incident that sparked massive protests in Georgia. That was a Russian MP who was taking part in an event. He was officially invited for that event. It was happening in the Georgian parliament, but he took the speaker's seat. Right. And that's what sparked the outrage. So have a look at what these protests looked like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, some nasty scenes there again of late. So where's it going to go briefly, do you think?
Well, Kevin, you have to understand that for the past several years, there's been no trouble in relations between Georgia and Russia. Everything's been relatively calm. The tourists were pouring into Georgia. And now all of this has been put on hold, and it's really under threat. We know that in response to this anti-Russian hysteria, that's how the Russian government puts it, Moscow suspended flights, direct flights between Georgia and Russia, and we've heard something that you may call, it's definitely not as bad as what this anchor did, but definitely some aggressive statements from politicians on both sides. So let's hope that this doesn't deteriorate and spiral out of control.
Let's continue to track it. All right, Ilya Petrenko, thanks for bringing us up to speed on what's happening there. Appreciate it.